For context, I work in both a middle and high school classroom and an elementary classroom. My students have complex communication needs, so some of the diagnoses may include hypoxic, ischemic encephalopathy, cerebral palsy, CVI, hearing loss, trach and vent dependence, all of those diagnoses and more. They're pretty much all on PO, so really no feeding. I float between both classrooms, so each day doesn't look exactly the same. Some of the students that I have actually have no volitional movement.
Hey there, and welcome to the Speechy Side Up podcast. My name is Vanita Litvack, and I am so grateful you're here. I'm an ASHA certified speech-language pathologist, author, and augmentative and alternative communication consultant who is obsessed with helping SLPs like you stop reinventing the wheel and connect with other SLPs in the trenches. Have you ever wondered how other SLPs seem to be doing it all with ease? Well, around here, you'll get to hear firsthand how SLPs are really getting things done while keeping evidence-based practice and self-care in mind. Think of this as a coffee date with your SLP friends. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while we learn together. As both a parent and a professional, I've seen behavioral strategies everywhere, whether it's in swimming lessons, sleep training, or classrooms. I believe there's a more effective and compassionate way to support young kids that honors their emotions and encourages real growth. That's why I'm thrilled to share our upcoming event with you called Behavior Connect, Prioritizing Connection First on November 15th, 2024. This event is all about moving beyond traditional behavior strategies to foster authentic connections with children. We've assembled an incredible lineup of speakers, including Carrie Ebert, Rachel from PTSD SLP, Iris from EF Toolkit, Dr. Diamond Rashad, Jackie Jebian Garcia from Create Yourself Co., and more. You can grab your free live ticket now by visiting aboutbehaviorconnect.com or clicking on the link in the show notes. Don't worry if you can't make it live. We will have affordable options to upgrade for replays and CEUs during early access registration starting October 21st, 2024. Get on the list so you don't miss any updates. All right, let's dive into today's episode of the Behavior Connect series. Today, I'm joined by Claire Mirvis. Claire is a first-year SLP that works in an education setting within a hospital. She works with medically fragile children from pre-K through high school. She started working in this setting in fall of 2023 and developed a passion for learning more about AAC and neurodiversity affirming practices specific to her setting. She loves working with her students and co-treating with her wonderful coworkers, which include occupational therapists, physical therapists, music therapists, and teachers. Claire, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So do you feel like that covers everything, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you cover most of it. I would just say that this is a very unique setting. And before even being here, I didn't know that a setting like this existed. So it comes with like really great things and some challenges, which I will get into later. But yeah, settings like this do exist where it's both educational and medical. It's kind of a combination of both, and it just makes things really interesting.
Is it like considered a PPEC? Is that what they call, like down here, that's like what those type of facilities tend to be. But what is it called up there?
It's kind of like long-term care inpatient.
Okay. And it's at the hospital, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's really interesting. How did you find it?
Well, I'm contracted, so my contractor actually like found it, and it's actually quite close to where I live. And I always passed by it coming home growing up. And I had actually tried to volunteer like early on, but like it just didn't work out. And it's just pretty funny how now I work here.
Yeah, it was always meant to be. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
So what does a typical day look like in this type of setting?
So for context, I work in both a middle and high school classroom and an elementary classroom. My students have complex communication needs, so some of the diagnoses may include hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, cerebral palsy, CVI, hearing loss, trach and vent dependence, all of those diagnoses and more. They're pretty much all on PO, so really no feeding. I float between both classrooms, so each day doesn't look exactly the same. Some of the students that I have actually have no volitional movement, which spices things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Typically, I begin my day by modeling language during morning routines. I have a state iPad and I loaded it up with TD apps, Tobii Dynavox apps. So TD Core, Pod, and Motor Plan. What I do is I connect it to a smartboard in the classroom. And during morning routine, I model core words as the music therapist sings songs that she actually wrote herself about morning routines like weather, what day is it, like greeting songs. She's absolutely amazing. And she really tries to incorporate the core words that I model into her songs. And she also makes sure to give a lot of wait time. Specifically, when I just want to talk about my setup a little bit. So since many of my students have cortical visual impairment, the display I use is high contrast with large spacing in between each button. And after our morning routine songs, I typically work on weather, calendar, temperature with the students. Whatever they're working on in class, I try to support with different communication modalities. Like high tech, I use low tech boards, I use lots of switches. I coach it with the OT all the time. With the younger students, I do things that are similar, but it's like a lot of songs, child-led play, bubbles, like they love bubbles. Bubbles are a huge hit. And I know it's so simple, but it really like packs a punch and I love using bubbles with them.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So, what are some ways that you incorporate neurodiversity affirming practices into your therapy?
So neurodiversity affirming care is at the core of what I do. I would say it's difficult to pinpoint every single thing that I do to ensure that therapy is neurodiversity affirming, but I think for me, the main thing is that it comes down to understanding that all of the students have so many diagnoses. While obviously my role is to facilitate communication, the most important thing for me, even more important than that, is to just meet the students where they're at for the day or where they're at generally. Nobody can or should be expected to reach their potential if they're in pain or feeling emotionally dysregulated or crying. So if a student appears to be in distress, like whether it's emotional distress or respiratory distress, sometimes I just sit with them and remain present. I let them know, hey, I'm here, I'm listening. I play soothing music, or if they look sleepy, I just allow them to sleep and I try to put soothing things on to the iPad for them. Another really huge concept, which I know is spoken about a lot in our field, is presuming competence. In my opinion, I'd much rather presume competence and model too, quote unquote, too much for everyone to understand than deprive students of access to language. Everybody deserves the right to have access to language. I think that attitude is everything. And actually, this morning when I was on Instagram, I saw a quote. I forget which page it was on, but it was from a guy named Matt Laurie, who is an LPP. I don't know what that is. And the quote said, "This is your goal, to help autistic people live a life that fits with their neurology." And although the quote is targeted specifically for the autistic population, I think it really highlights how I feel as well about my population. And it's not really so much about, can the kid do it? I really think it's about, are the people around the kid providing the proper supports so that way the child can thrive?
Oh, I love that. You said so many good things. One thing I wanted to touch back on was you were talking about when a student is in distress, that you kind of like stop and just work on supporting the student in that moment. And
Mhm.
this is so different than behavior therapy. When a student is in distress, they might attribute that to maybe they're trying to extinguish a behavior and they'll say like, oh, the behaviors are going to escalate. But really that student just might be in a lot of distress and then might have like that learned helplessness as a result of extinguishing that behavior. And I know if there's like a safety issue, then like behavioral strategies can be helpful when it's a safety issue, but I think it's definitely a case by case basis. But yeah, like I was just talking to a BCBA the other day about my daughter's thumb sucking, and all of the strategies she was giving me was negative reinforcement, removing things away, and just like my daughter's 3.5, and the BCBA knew this. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. But then as a parent, I know better. But then I'm thinking, this BCBA is working with children of the same age, recommending the same type of things. And so I think we have a lot of work to do because we share a
Definitely.
mutual client. But it's like, where do you even start when that's like someone's educational background? Like, how do you find a middle ground, you know?
You know, I've been in that situation too, because during my clinical fellowship, I did work in an MD program from pre-K to middle school. And everybody was so wonderful, but there were times where maybe we weren't on the exact same page in terms of that. And it really, again, like what you said, it has to do with the background. So I like to just take a team approach instead of saying, you shouldn't be doing this. You can say, let's work as a team to figure out how we can meet somewhere in the middle, because at the end of the day, we both have the same goal, which is to help the students.
Hmm. And then what you're saying here, like if the student's in distress, like, kind of just take a beat, it's removing that power struggle and
Mhm.
it's removing the adult control out of the situation. Like it's just recognizing the student for who they are, a human being, and respecting their autonomy and like respecting their feelings and just connecting with them.
Right. And we don't know exactly what they're feeling. I mean, obviously, I try to facilitate communication in a way that like helps them to communicate when they're in discomfort. But of course, we can't always know what somebody's thinking or how somebody's feeling. And so if that's all we do for the day, and if that makes them feel better, then that makes me feel good that, I at least help them a little bit.
Yeah. That's such another great point. Like you don't know what's going on. And then when we look at ABA therapy and they've got the antecedent, I feel like a lot of times they think they got the answer. Oh, it's attention seeking or it's escape, but you really don't know. You really don't know unless you're in
Absolutely.
that side that client's head, you don't know.
Which you can't even be inside of their head. You're not them.
Right.
You don't know their
Yeah.
experiences. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what they're currently experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, such great points. So what aspects of working within your setting do you love the most?
So I obviously love my students. They're so much fun. They have such good senses of humor. Like they just surprise me every day. But I think one of the things that I adore is the collaboration piece, which I know that not everybody gets this privilege, but since there are only two classrooms, I'm in a very tight-knit group of therapists and teachers. So if one of us has a new idea, it's pretty easy to just walk over to their desk and discuss the idea further. We're often discussing ideas, asking and answering questions, and co-treating. We all, I say that we all work like a well-oiled machine. Um, and I don't want to speak on behalf of my coworkers, but deep down, I know that we all share the same goal, which is to help the students succeed. And I feel so lucky to be where I am, to be in such a small and tight-knit group of people who are so open to new ideas and who just work together so well, like a team.
That's amazing. It's great that you work in a setting where that's possible. So, what advice would you give to other clinicians working with medically fragile patients?
I would definitely emphasize the importance of trying to find joy in the little things every single day. As clinicians, I really feel like a lot of times we want and expect major progress. Only, and it comes from a good place. It's because we want to help our students or our patients, but we do have to be very patient and detail oriented. What small detail did I notice today that wasn't there yesterday? Is the student smiling more? Even if they aren't activating a Big Mac today with their head, are they trying? Are they looking at the Big Mac? As I said earlier, this goes back to when I said we have to meet the students with where they're at. If you speak to a student and they smile, that's great, that's major. If they have brain injury and track an object for even a second, I mean, show excitement and say, you found the object, you're amazing. I really do feel that small steps can sometimes be overlooked because we just get so lost in like the nitty gritty, but small details are important.
That's a great tip. And then, what do you wish you knew about AAC when you began working in your current setting?
I wish I knew how much room for creativity AAC allowed. Like, for example, switch access, at least when I've seen it in media, it's often represented with head movement or hand movement, but you can use a student's foot, you
Mhm.
can use their chin, you can make an eye gaze board out of a baseball card holder. I found that on Instagram. It wasn't my idea. You can mock up a key guard by cutting some squares out of the baseball card holder. You can use wiki sticks to outline core words on the iPad. I mean, there's just so many things you can do. And although AAC is individualized and unique, you do have to just find ways around the challenges that you face.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many facets of it. For instance, I thought I knew a lot about AAC, and then when you start looking at assistive technology, like that's a whole other area. Assistive technology and access, a whole other realm of AAC. It's like the next level up, and it requires a lot more training. And the fact that you're working with medically fragile students, you're dealing with access and assistive technology on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And I think the more that you work with it and the more that you dive in, the more you learn.
Mhm.
Like, okay, this didn't work today, or, if the next day, if the kid has like, they're getting spastic, like if their muscles are spasming and they hit a switch, it's like, you have to shape that. You just have to like be
Mhm.
very creative with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things that helped me, Chip Clark said something that was, like, really poignant was that, especially when you're working with individuals who have access needs, he was talking about how you separate access from vocabulary, and you really need to iron out what the access needs are before you go and select a vocabulary. I feel like, if someone uses direct selection, then you have more options available. You could do an iPad with different apps, or you could do a high tech dedicated AAC system for touch. But if you like are finding out that the client needs switch scanning or eye gaze or head pointing, then it kind of narrows your vocabulary options down, or it narrows your AAC system options down, and then that narrows like your vocabulary options. So I just thought that that was a really good point and something that you don't typically think about when you think of AAC. Like a lot of the times when we think of AAC, it's the iPad with a communication app.
Right. When I was in a public school, that's kind of how I thought of AAC. And then coming here has just completely changed the world of AAC for me. And I've just been doing so much research. But I feel like in instances where you're having like that trouble with access points, I think that's really where interdisciplinary collaboration really comes in and saves the day.
Yes, definitely. Well, this has been amazing, Claire. If people are interested in finding and connecting with you afterwards, where can they reach you?
My Instagram handle is a bear named Claire on Instagram.
Love
It's
that.
my personal Instagram, but I don't really mind if people follow me. And then my email is my last name and my first name, mervisclaire@gmail.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And this was a really great episode. We don't have a lot of people like that work with this population that have come on and talked about it. So I really appreciate your perspective.
Oh, of course. And I'm so glad that, I had been selected to speak because, again, I just wanted to spread awareness that settings like this do exist.
Yeah, I think it's really great for anybody that's looking for a career switch to know like what it looks like and the possibilities that are out there.
Absolutely. It's always good to have a lot of options.
That's true. Well, thank you, Claire. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. By the way, have you joined the SSU crew yet? By joining, you get access to the free goods section on our website, plus podcast updates, special event notifications, and therapy inspiration. You can sign up at bit.ly/join SSU crew, all lowercase, or just find the link in this episode description. Also, don't forget to take a screenshot of this episode so that you can always refer back to it and share it on social media if you really love the topic. Take care and remember to always fill your speechy side cup first before you can pour into others.